Oh,
Okay. Most of you have had a chance to meet me at some point this weekend, so I'll be a bit more brief than I might otherwise be. My name is Margaret Elizabeth. I am one of your co-chairs. Of course, I am from the state of Washington, and I'm serving on my second term on the steering committee. I'm going to share some background about myself that you might not know. I was born in Knoxville, Tennessee. I was adopted when I was 2, and I moved to Libya when I was 6 years old. I was raised there until I moved back to the United States when I was 16, and I'm grateful to that experience in more ways than I can possibly count. I grew up without access to television, print media, or radio, and with only the school library as any form of diversion. And consequently, I ended up reading every book in that library twice, including the stupid dictionary. I swear, it was a curse. I used to look at the moon and the stars for myself, but lacking any real scientific equipment, I read an entry in an encyclopedia about how to build a spyglass. So I constructed my own and looked at the moon and stars for myself. I've been involved in green activism for the last 25 years with a specific focus on Leave No Trace music and arts festivals, non-barter or non-monetary barter-based economies, and community wellness services. My friends and I created an event called Playa del Fuego in 1998, and it's been going strong ever since. We've put on 50 events, two per year. It's pretty amazing. I voted green ever since I could with Ralph Nader, and I've been a Green ever since. I formally joined the Green Party in 2016 when I was helping the Jill Stein campaign by running the Jill Stein for Washington and the Jill Stein Dank Memes Facebook pages. I've been honored and grateful to receive the support and trust of my peers in the National Green Party, first in the National Lavender Green Caucus, representing the caucus as a national delegate, and currently as a co-chair and media spokesperson. Subsequent to that election, I stood for the co-chair of the steering committee of the United States of the Green Party and won, and I am serving my second term, which I think I already mentioned. And just let me wrap it up real fast there. I believe that our party, the Green Party, is the best chance we have of making a real material difference in the United States and in electoral politics. And I know the electoral game isn't for everybody, but it definitely is part of a diverse strategy to change the system and fight the most corrupt and pervasive machine, capitalism, that we ever faced. So I'm really grateful to work with great comrades like the other steering committee members here, and I look forward to taking some of your questions later on. Thanks. Cheers.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Margaret. Craig, we'll pass it over to you.
Thanks so much, everyone. Hi, I'm Craig Cayetano. I've been politically active most of my life. I started in high school with a lot of debate, getting into a lot of different movements then and actions at a young age. I supported Ralph Nader when he ran in 2000. I did steer away from green politics for a while, thinking that we could work and change the other party. It didn't work out, obviously. So after 2016, I started to move back into the Green Party after the end of the Democratic primary process. I was literally in Philly, and that's when I kind of switched over and was pulling people like that day with a lot of other former burners, and haven't looked back. New Jersey ran some really good candidates and campaigns since 2017, where we've taken our registered Greens from under 3,000 to now almost 11,577 last I checked. So we've been growing here. We have a lot of coalitions, other organizations. I started with running as being a state delegate to the national party, then communications chair, state co-chair, termed out, and then obviously I've cycled back through as state co-chair. This year I've decided to put my name in to be voted for steering committee, just because I knew we have a pinnacle race and time ahead of us the next year. There's a lot of goals in the party that I wanted to make sure that we're going to be fulfilled, and I figured this is the best time than ever. I'm a devout eco-socialist. I've promoted all of our youth in terms of getting involved in our state and our Yes Caucus here, and support them everywhere. And just look forward to being here representing my state as we continue to grow and flourish in 2024, and obviously represent the national party in the best light that I can. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Craig. Joe, we'll pass it over to you.
hi, I'm Joe Naham. I'm lifelong Green, and been a Green all of my life since I was able to register to vote. And I'll tell you, I'm co-chair on this great steering committee, and I am living in Long Beach, New York, which is a barrier island. It was man-made in the late 1800s. We have it was originally 5 different marsh islands, and they dredged them and turned the 6 inlets into just 2 inlets. And in it's 140 years, you could see really how humans could mess up what nature was trying to do for hundreds of thousands of years here. So I've gotten involved with the environment all my life. I'm a captain. I drive around collecting sewage out of boats so that they're not illegally dumping it and preserving the environment. My brother is the head marine biologist in this area. We do a lot of necropsies on whales that are being hit by boats, big ships. I'm in New York, so we have New York Harbor here. And I lost my home in Hurricane Sandy. And I was a Green. I would go to rallies in March, but right after Hurricane Sandy, my fiance and I, at the time, we decided the choice is, do we stay here where thousands of people left, or do we up and leave and try to find somewhere else, because this was really devastated. And we chose to stay here, and I got involved more with the Green Party. I became chairperson of the Nassau County Green Party, became a state delegate. I am then a national delegate, but we work, and I ran for office 4 times. I really like getting people information on things that can help communities. Another thing about Long Beach was that it was built as a resort community, and we had one hotel here in the 1880s, and people would train here from Manhattan, and they would weekend here. But the community that was built to serve all of the hotel guests, which was Black, was here all year round, 7 days a week. And that was never reinvested in. The hotel burnt down, but they kept reinvesting in everywhere else. But Long Beach it's kind of a microcosm for places that are diverse, but show how a lot of energy isn't going where it needs to go to keep a community sustainable. So I've been trying hard, not just here, but throughout the country, to just bring out awareness and push for activism. I'm now liaison for Eco Action Committee, the International Committee, Green Pages, as well as the Monetary Finance Committee, Reform Committee. And I really am pleased to be here. I look forward to answering questions, and this is really my family. And I also have a 5-year-old son. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Tama, let's hand it over to you.
Hi, I'm Tama Yeager, and I'm a cat mom. And the first thing I'll say is I'm married into the Green Party. My husband, Tom Yeager, was very active with the Nader campaign, and from then on, I was not very politically active. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky originally, and I don't want to say the Green Party wasn't needed, but there just wasn't an active Green Party because the city of Louisville is pretty progressive overall, and we had good Democrats in office, at least locally. So, I never got really involved in politics until I was asked to help on Dennis Kucinich's Imagine America campaign. And he did that with Marianne Williamson and Tim Robbins. And Louisville was the first place that they did that. And then they went around to several other cities. And then, of course, he didn't run for president after that. I mean, he dropped out. And so after that, my parish in Louisville is a very, very, very progressive Catholic church. And we always sent someone to a conference called Call to Action, which is it's where all the progressive Catholics get together. And I met Tom there. We actually met at a retreat for younger people, but I met him there and never looked back, fell in love. So CTA is dear to my heart too. And there are lots of folks in there that are Green Party folks. You just don't necessarily know it because they don't proselytize like I do. Anyway, so we got married in 2006 and I moved to Virginia because Tom has a good job as a federal bureaucrat. So I moved here and started getting involved. I started getting involved in the local party first, but then my first conference was in 2007 in Reading, and it was wonderful. I loved it. And some of you may know this story, but I was standing at the merchandise table and I was talking to Emily Sikowski, who was our office manager. And we were just talking about donating. We had just met and we were talking about donating and fundraising, and somebody else was there and she said, I wish I could give more. She said, but I can't do those $1,000 donations. And I said, yes, you can. You can do $85 a month like we do. And she did it. And so Emily was like, whoa, that was great. So about a year and a half later, I became the fundraising director for a couple of years and enjoyed that. All the same time, I love meeting planning and am really good at it, at least the logistical stuff for in-person meetings. And so I joined the A&M committee right away and helped plan Chicago. And then after Chicago, I became co-chair of the committee with Hillary Kane for a few years. And I stayed on the committee. I was I do all the logistical stuff and the negotiating with facilities and all. And that's one of my favorite things to do. I've also served on most of the committees that have to do with admin, like finance. I'm still on there. Finance, fundraising, other admin ones, mostly admin. So I wrote some notes here. I have not served on the platform or I haven't served on the electoral committees or platform. Let's see. My main role right now, though, on the steering committee, and I've done this before. I've been on the steering committee 3 or 4 times on and off terms, and I'm the staff supervisor along with Tony, and that's something I really find joy in.
Gentle time.
Because our staff is so great, that's enough.
Awesome. Thanks, Tama. And then Tony, we'll pass it over to you.
I don't think he's here. Is he here?
I think so.
I think he's the other Bob.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
He might need a second though, and if that's the case, we can come back. All right, so we're gonna come back to Tony and Daryl and Alfred in a moment. And while we are waiting on them, we're gonna pass it over to Bob and Holly. We're gonna give each of you guys about 6 minutes to both introduce yourself and talk about what you do on the steering committee and your more unique roles. So Holly, go ahead and kick us off. Oh, I can't hear you. I don't know if others can.
Because it was muted. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. My name is Holly Hart, and I am a member of the Iowa Green Party. And just quickly, I was always interested in progressive, especially social justice causes, but I wasn't politically active. My background is in music, performing arts, and broadcasting. And I got involved because I was struck when I was playing in the pit orchestra about the nature of an Arthur Miller play, a musical that dealt with conditions in the 20s and 30s. And then I read an article about the Green Party of New Mexico in The Nation. And I signed a note and got a postcard asking me to help out. So I helped out in the early first Nader campaign. In 2000, the person who had handled ballot filing handed me the whole thing. And so I ended up coordinating that for my state. And then I got involved with platform, and I've been involved with policy and electoral stuff. I've been a ballot access advocate, been consultant on a couple things. locally, and I've done ballot filings and national work on two plus national campaigns for the Green Party. Currently worked with a media committee and also on the coordinated campaign committee. So electoral work, local campaigns, and ballot access are a big deal for me. My big deal is that I think we should be litigating, but that's another thing. So as secretary, I actually fulfilled this role long ago. Some things have changed, some haven't. Basically, what people will run into me when you become a delegate or change committees, the main thing you see is that I compile steering committee meeting agendas, take minutes, and record it. When David Doonan, our web manager, posts all of those recordings. I was also an admin, so that which actually works under the secretary. So it was easy for me to step into this role because I know where things are. There's a voting page and email list when new delegates are added. You are subscribed to 2 email lists and you get a voting page message with a password and login ID. One thing I wanted to take a chance to let people know, if you are a delegate or a new delegate and you're unsure of where to go or what to do, you can write to secretary@gp.org. If I don't know the answer, I can put you in touch with somebody who doesn't. It's usually putting in touch with somebody who can help you out. But frequently people have questions about the voting page or email list, and I can help with that. I have a short video tutorial. Actually, it's not a video, it's a panel of PowerPoint on Zoom, which David Doonan asked me to compile, and he put that together. So if people want basic Zoom instructions, not fancy, but basic stuff, you can contact me for that. Let's see. Also, so when I just want to also mention, if your state changes delegations, please, if you are in the officer role that takes care of that, please send a secretary and web manager, or just send a secretary. And I also send to the web manager, we need the delegation of delegates, alternates, observers, and anybody leaving to be unsubscribed, and their email addresses at least. And also contact info like phone numbers and mailing addresses are also good. For committee co-chairs, you will be hearing from me. I will be reaching out to you soon, one by one, for a review of our Google system. I also take care of committee updates and forward that information to the web manager and the committee co-chairs when that comes in. One thing I inherited from a former secretary, I think David Gary did a great job in putting together all those Google folders, but over time they've kind of been, due to the way Google works, it needs some housekeeping. So I'm going to be contacting and kind of getting that back under control, not control because you control it, but basically better under the organization. And that's one thing I have planned. The other is housekeeping, updating bylaws to reconcile with more recent updates proposals. Bylaws are updated, things happen, and there are 2 or 3 of them, and I know, and several things fell through the cracks in a couple of recent years. So another project on my front burner or mid burner is to go back and find those and then update the bylaws and rules pages. So when people go and look for the rules and bylaws, they've got the most up-to-date setting. I also help with, I've helped with Zoom and conducted some online events. And I also do some official correspondence like inquiries, and recently a high school class in Ohio was asked to reach out to various parties. And so we got several inquiries about the Green Party. And yes, I do proofread before I send those messages. Let me see. I guess I know somebody's probably going to ask, so I'll just mention, they're going to ask about the ranked choice voting for various things. And yes, I actually do know what is involved, and I can give you the whole history. Ironically, a situation very much like the questions people are asking now was what led to what we have now. So, I am compiling facts and figures and input, and hope to go forward. Margaret Elizabeth is going to help oversee an update of some fix up of the voting page as the pair server the WordPress has updated from the pair server the WordPress is updated from time to time. Things have started to happen, and so it needs a touch up anyway. So anyway, I think I covered everything. It's not particularly exciting, but I do enjoy it, and I do enjoy meeting newcomers and helping people troubleshoot and find out where to go, or tell them where to go. Sometimes they deserve some. Anyway,
All right, thanks, Holly. Bob, let's pass it over to you here about treasurer duties and how you joined the Green Party.
Well, I think I'm going to start by telling you something that just happened, ironic. An email came in, I got the notification that one of the young eco-socialists who's seeking reimbursement is reaching out to me. So after this, I'll be able to, one of my jobs as treasurer is passing out the sweet stuff to the people who need it. So this particular individual went to the international conference in Korea, and now finally we're getting around to paying his hotel bill. But how did I come to be here? I grew up in Oregon. I went to for a couple of years of school in Chicago. I burned a 2S card. That was kind of the end of that. And so got married. We moved to Israel. We had 2 kids. We stayed there for a while because it's kind of from the pan into the fire. And then we came back and went from one thing. We raised some children, and during that time, it was kind of interesting. I generally voted for women and people of color because I felt they were underrepresented. Because I didn't want to I didn't have the time. I was raising kids. I didn't have the time to really dig into it. And then we moved to New London, which is a small, as small as you can get and still be a city, small city in Connecticut. And we had a problem here. Pfizer was trying to horn in and get some corporate welfare and call it something else. And only the Green Party really stood in the way, and as it turned out, ineffectually, because the Dems and Republicans were dead set on destroying that neighborhood. So it was a learning, and especially how to work in coalition. So here we are today. In my career, I've been treasurer of the local chapter. I still am, actually. I have been treasurer of the state of Connecticut, and that I just passed on recently, just before, so which kind of cleared the space in my life for this. I am retired, have been for quite a few years now. Actually, it's an interesting thing being, well, old. Hate to use such bold language, but the treasurer does have some interesting parts, and we've had some interesting problems with our finances, but that's to be expected, and that's something that wanted to work on. I actually, one of the things that I wanted to do, and I still want to do, was make sure that we're good employers. I see all around in my real life. I was also on the board of a nonprofit food justice organization that I feel very passionately about, but they weren't always a good employer. And I mean, I'm mincing language here. They were a lousy employer, still are at times. So it's something that I really want to work on, and generally keep the ship afloat. So that's me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bob. So we are going to head back on over to a couple of our steering committee co-chairs to hear some introductions. So Daryl, if you could take about 4 minutes and introduce how you came to the Green Party and your background.
Oh, muted. Daryl, muted.
I noticed it. Thank you. So Kristen, I'm going to actually do that and a little bit more in the 4 minutes that you've given me, because I have to bounce out shortly. Hello, everyone. Thank you all again for being here and being a part of this conversation. It's a pleasure to serve the party in this way, and I'll leave it at that. All right. So I came to the party in around Tuhe Aloha Nikki, in about 2008 with the Cynthia McKinney campaign. Cynthia was a former mentor of mine and a colleague in Georgia. And so I sought the party out after finding out that she was on the ticket. And I first started, prior to that, I started trying to get connected in my state, which is Washington, D.C., to the local state party. And in those days, communications and all across from the national and the locals were not so great. And it took a while for me to actually get connected. I then ran for office with the state party in the primary in 2010. And again, recently this last season, I ran again in the primary for the, well, actually I was in the whole thing for the chair of DC City Council. So that's sort of some of that political stuff. I've been the chair of the state party in DC for quite some time, served on its steering committee prior to that. I have been with the party, like I said, since 2008, and been involved with the national organization since around that time. I started getting involved with what was then known as the Black Caucus, and we're now known as the National Black Caucus, because prior to that time, we were the only Black Caucus. Now there are states that have begun to develop Black caucuses, and even some locals in the area, in different areas. And so we are now the National Black Caucus, so that we're very clear to be able to allow everyone to distinguish and differentiate where they are in the work that they're doing. We are also very excited to have more people to join all of our caucuses, and I've been promoting that this weekend to really encourage our states and others to find ways to make sure that you can refer members of your area, your local or your state to the caucuses for additional engagement and support. It's a great way to make sure we keep people, especially if they are feeling marginalized in different ways in society and or in the party. So my work here has, over the years, I've been on a variety of committees. My primary committee that I've been on the longest has been Media Platform and the Dispute Resolution Committee, where I've chaired that and co-chaired that. So those are some interesting things. I've also served on the Finance Committee. I've been on the CCC, the Coordinated Campaign Committee. And prior to that, we also had the House Committee and the Senate committees that have still theoretically exist, but they're all sort of looped into the CCC right now. And in addition to serving on those committees and engaging in a lot of different ways to be a part of the work of the party. So the other question that I think that was asked of us to share with you, so I'll share before, if we don't get to me by the time I have to go, is I believe that what we are on the steering committee are the administrative arm for the national party, and that our job is to help fulfill the things that the national committee has said it wants to have happen, and to govern and guide manage and guide the staff in the work that they're doing to make sure the work of the party gets done effectively and efficiently. And I do not believe that we by ourselves are leaders of the party, although we are leaders because we are all at some point having been served as delegates or alternates on the national committee, which is where the leadership of the party comes from. So I don't believe that we should be asked to make leadership type decisions independently of what the national committee has already identified and what we've agreed to as our platform. And in the places where there are questions about that, I do think we need to step in at times to make decisions when it's something that needs to happen for the sake of the party, for our credibility and for our visibility. I do think, though, that things that can take some time, we need to have the discussion and conversation with the national committee about those things. So that having been said, my energy right now, what I see doing as a part of that in my function is to make sure that we are maintaining our credibility and our visibility in the community, that we are effectively managing the resources of the party, which include our staff, who are our greatest asset, or our staff and our volunteers across the nation. And so we want to make sure that folks are being treated with dignity and respect and fair equity. And I also want to make sure that in this cycle with this presidential election, that we're doing the best that we can to make sure that the work that we do and the way the party is viewed remains credible, and that all of our candidates are getting a equitable share of the work that we do as a party and respect from within the party. So, and whoever wins the nomination, we get behind that person and we push to keep the message of the Green Party going forward. And I believe that that is important as well. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a performing artist. I'm a minister. I'm a single parent, and I'm also now a care provider for my mom, who is in her 70s, which is some of the reasons why I'm in and out today and why I have to leave. Actually, two of our long-term Greens and socialist communist Greens, actually in the DC area, are having their 40th wedding anniversary, and one of them is turning 80. And so it happens to be happening right now, literally as we speak. And so I'm going to eventually jump off and go and show my face there, as well as some other things that I do in the area. Someone's asking who my
Gentle
connection was
Times.
to Cynthia McKinney. She was my direct connection. I met her when I lived in Georgia. And so I was going to run for office in Georgia. She was supporting those efforts. And then I needed to leave Georgia to go take care of a family member in Arizona. And so that is what moved me back to the West Coast. I'm originally from Los Angeles. Hey, California folks. But I've lived in a lot of places around the country. And so I've gotten to meet lots of people in a lot of different ways. And I understand the nuances and differences of what happens in different jurisdictions, as well as the needs in different people from rural to city and cosmopolitan areas to suburban areas and everything, all those mixes in there. So that's me. I hope I didn't go over. I might have gone longer than my 4 minutes. I'm sorry if I did. I'm not going to rush immediately away, but I am glad to be here with you and engage. There's so much more that I would love to say about visions and ideas, but the main thing that you need to take away from this for me is that I want to make sure that our party remains credible and visible, and that we can reach out to people who will need us to be the change in the political environment that they need to save our lives and our planet.
Thanks, Daryl. I went ahead and gave you your minutes for the goal setting now so that
Oh,
you can
thanks,
let you
sorry.
go later. So Tony, I am going to pass it over to you to do your 4-minute intro. And then you guys heard a little preview of what's to come next from Daryl.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. Hi, guys. I am on my laptop in the car. So that's, I don't know if I've done that before for Zoom. Maybe I have. I have no idea. But my name's Tony Ndege. This is my third term as a steering committee member. Took a break in between and decided to return. In many ways to help with helping to steer the party towards ballot access and focusing on organizing and things like that. Because that has a lot to do with my background. I am a leader in North Carolina Green Party, or a member, however you want to say it. We're leaderful. We all kind of pick up a major part in making things go. And that's what I like about the Green Party. It's a very grassroots, leaderful movement, and just so necessary, because we desperately need an anti-war, thoroughly and unequivocally anti-war party. I grew up I live in Winston-Salem now, but I grew up in DC, in Maryland, that area. My background is actually in music and stage productions. I've also done some directing in film and video work and assistant directing as well. But a lot of that I took a break from to do activism, actually, which actually has a lot of similarities to directing and except like if you're okay with police sirens and possible tear gas and things like that. But it's a lot of fun. You're working with people, you're having to inspire people, you're having to bring forth people who are, inspire people maybe even more than you can, and watch the beauty of that. It's a really beautiful thing, activism and organizing, and that's where I came from. I've been an anti-war activist, as I said. I got back into things with the Occupy movement, Black Lives Matter movement, labor movements, and also environmental justice movements. Here in North Carolina, we have Duke Energy, which has for the longest time been one of the largest energy corporations in the world, actually, and one of the major polluters, and done a lot of activity with that. How did I get involved in the Green Party? I got involved in the Green Party. I'll trace it back to the DNC protests in 2012 in Charlotte. When Jill Stein, who was running there her first time, came down and spoke. This was also during the Occupy movement, so we had occupiers and people who were down there, and she was really cool. She had to deal with a lot of tough questions, and she handled them really well. And she was the only person running for office that was there that entire time. Not just coming in just to advertise. And she came to encampments and things like that. And I was like, hey, the Greens are doing cool stuff now. And I just saw that we really need political independence, which is what I'm here for, which is what I think we need, a party that stresses that. And we're really not going to get a lot further in terms of labor movements, in terms of racial justice movements, until we can organize our own party. Working class people who are hurt by the system the most, we have to have our own party. We cannot reform their party. And that's what I'm here for. I was recruited, I think, in many ways by Bruce Dixon. He recruited me into the Stein 2016 campaign. I started doing stuff with North Carolina Green Party. Also the fact that the Green Party became eco-socialist during around that time, at least officially, although I think they always were. That really had a big part and played a big role in my joining. And also I wanted to, there began to be the advancement of dues paying, ideas of a dues paying membership driven organization by Bruce and others. And North Carolina Green Party is one of the state parties that has taken initiative with that. And otherwise we wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the things that we had done. So I'm here to promote political independence, political clarity, organizing. I work with the Ballot Access Committee as a co-chair, Finance Committee, and I also work with the staff. And more than happy, I'll see you guys tomorrow during the Ballot Access Committee presentation. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you guys, co-chairs, for sharing. Thank you, Secretary and Treasurer, for sharing a little bit of an intro to you. We are going to move into a moment of time where we're going to give every co-chair about 2 minutes to speak to their goals as a co-chair of the steering committee. While they are doing that, I wanted to let you guys know that after they finish that up, we're going to open it up for questions. So if you have questions that you would like to pose to the steering committee, any member of the steering committee, go ahead and click on the Q&A down at the bottom. Looks like 2 little chat bubbles. You can click on that. It says Q&A, and you can put your questions in there. We are going to hang on to those questions, and we'll come back to them after folks have had a moment to share about their goals. So that's how you can put your questions up for a question and answer time. So I'm going to pass it over to Tama. And Tama, if you could take about 2 minutes and share your goals as a co-chair.
I want us to become more financially solvent. And so I serve on the finance committee and the fundraising committee, and then I work with the staff. So those are 2 of my areas of expertise in addition to meeting planning anyway. That's what I do for my job. So a lot of stuff is carries over, and it's really good because I'm dealing with things at work. I'm the associate director of Call to Action, the organization where I was on the board for years and where I met Tom. And I do all of the finances and I oversee the fundraising. And lately, there have been many, many things from finance that I'm dealing with that are applicable to us here at the Green Party and vice versa. So it's been really kind of fun, actually, being able to help advise. But mostly, I want us to become more financially solvent. And I think one of the ways that we can do that is to have a variety of ways for people to donate, and like monthly recurrings, and also to get people to put us in their wills, because right now we're living by death, and I don't want to continue to do that, but that's the only way we're going to do it. That's the only way. We don't want people to die, but that's where we're living by death now, because we got a big bequest last year. So Hopefully that will change. Hopefully we'll get more sustainers and more regular donors. Over.
All right, thanks, Tama. And Craig, go ahead.
So I deal with a lot of negotiating, and I've been in a lot of coalition movements for years. So part of my goals here is to take this party forward and make it the vehicle that I've always said it is. And you can kind of mold this party the way you want. You can be involved with different parts of it. You can run for office. You can work on policy. You can participate in actions. It's just being out there, visible, and propelling the whole movement forward. So for the last few years, there's been obviously all these other things formulating out there: Forward Party, People's Party. I've had friends involved in things like that. On a one-to-one level, the volunteers are the good people. They're getting dissuaded or persuaded in the wrong way, or used and abused. And I hate that. I've spoken out about that out of this channel before. And I'm just glad that we're here. We're showing that we're structured, we're organized, we're moving forward from some of the issues that we've had in the past. And personally, obviously, as an anti-war activist, I'm an eco-socialist. I might have some social libertarian parts of me still, but we work with other parties for lawsuits and ballot access, things like that. But we're our own party. We're building our own way, or we're forging our own road. And that's the point, that we need to make sure that we are able to clearly kind of demonstrate that and discuss that. But the main thing is to keep everybody together and realize that I personally have always said, we're the People's Party, and we're going to continue doing our path. And I'm here to represent my state and everybody else here. Over.
Great, thanks so much, Craig. Tony, go ahead, and if you want to share your goals on this steering committee.
Hey, yeah, well, some of my goals, as you guys can guess, ballot access is a major thing, and that's something that we're going to be working with a lot. Some of my major goals are really organizational. I do love the fact that we're a federation. However, I think there's ways that we could make things come together a lot better. I'll give you an example. My recent car kind of caught on fire, so I've been looking for new cars, and I've just been like, you contact these places, and they give you a call right back, and they have this kind of a way of like contacting you and doing outreach like right away. I'd love it if we could actually focus on that, because I think that would also help to engage people in becoming members of the party. I believe we should have a sustaining membership drive, and different people have different ideas about whether or not there should be a dues paying party. I think we should at least have the concept of like sustaining membership, which means that if we should have a goal for like 1,000, 2,000 new sustaining members. I think that's very, very doable, and that would definitely not only help our financial solvency, but also our organization. So if we can think more and go more in that direction, I think that would be very critical. I do also believe that we need to be making our own media. We cannot just kind of like think that we're going to release press releases and then the capitalist media is going to, they're there to serve the people who give them their jobs, and there's less and less of them, less and less independent media, less and less even local newspapers. All of that's controlled by these corporations. So we have to provide that independent media ourselves. It would be awesome, and it'd really be awesome if we organize around that, because it's we don't have millions of dollars to organize labor right now, right? But we could influence labor, but labor, things like that, if we can get our message out to folks who are involved in these movements, then they'll start to see, hey, we need our own party. We need a party of labor. We need a party that is not hooked up with either the war machine or Big Pharma or any of these kind of big corporations. And so we need to have our own political voice and our own media, maybe our own station or something. But that's a big goal, but I think we should do it.
Awesome, thank you. And Margaret?
Thank you very much, Kristen. So goals for the party. So I have 1 year left on my term at the PNC. So, I mean, let's be kind of frank about some of the things that we're looking at right here. We're looking at a watershed moment, a liminal event in Green Party history so far. And my thinking on this is that we need to make sure we don't squander it. We take advantage of the energy which is being directed towards us and make sure we utilize that to drive the green cause forward. I think that I have aspirational intentions in that way, but I have a few more practical matters that I want to accomplish. So you may know I'm the DevOps person for the voting software, which means I'm the interface between the party and our developers to get our voting software fixed. I would very much like to get our voting software fixed within the next year. So by the time we have our next election for the summer, it's all working properly. All the bugs are sorted out. All the extra code that was put in is all done. Everything is squared away. That's a practical, measurable goal, which I'd like to get sorted out. I very much agree that the email list is a cumbersome beast to deal with. Nevertheless, the attempts to move off of that email list have been frustrating, to say the least. I think within the next year, it's certainly very feasible for us to have a proposal in front of the National Committee with a real timetable to migrate off of our email lists onto another platform. I have a preference for that. I'm not sure this is the right place to express my preference here. That maybe come up for our discussion, but my ideas here is if you are a person who needs to use screen readers for whatever reason, you should be able to use the screen readers you want. You shouldn't be forced into some non-ADA compliant situation. So email is super important for that because screen readers work with that. We can't give up email just because those able-bodied of us don't need those same assistances. So that's an important consideration on ours, like the technical side of making changes to the party. Aspirationally, as I mentioned, I want us to kind of like take advantage of this energy. So what does that mean? I think it means a couple of things. I think it means making sure we've got really good PCSC rules. So as the POTUS candidates around the country start going through their qualifying process, it's very clear to everyone what they have to do, what the steps are, A, B, C, D. And then if you do all that things, then here you are. And I think there's a role for the steering committee in helping make sure that process gets accomplished. And I think that, I'm also I'm in my caucus in my state. So my aspirational intentions overlap with some of those. And I'll share with you that, the National Committee is going to be choosing our PNC site for the first time since 2020. It's been the choice of the steering committee ever since, or for the last 4 years. So next year will be the first time that the National Committee gets to choose it, and it'll be in person. This is going to be our first in-person conference in a very long time, and it'll be a big deal. I hope to participate in the planning of and making that happen, because I think it's going to be one of those kind of events that we look back on in a historic sense and really realize that we pulled together with a lot of groups around the country. We got a vision together and we were able to drive a green message into the popular zeitgeist in a way which can no longer be ignored.
Great, thanks, Margaret. And Joe?
Yes. So as a captain, I try and make sure every part of the boat is in order or ship is in order. So I want this Green Party to be financially solvent. I think information is extremely important to get out to everybody. And I also want to try and be engaged with everyone from state parties to local parties, because we're living in the age of information, and stuff happens so fast that it's crucial to get ideas out, because people are going to listen. And I think everyone's making excellent points. We need to have really helpful media, because it's not just, I'll use the analogy again about Long Beach getting inundated by Hurricane Sandy. In 40 years, Long Beach is not going to be the South Shore anymore of Long Island. We're going to be underwater. And then 2 miles up is going to be the new South Shore. And they're going to want to know what we've been doing here to be proactive in trying to help themselves up there. Now, no one's going to be relying on the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or any other political organization because they're too busy fear mongering. But we have a responsibility, and I have a responsibility to try and put information out, whether it's from the Eco Action Committee, Green Pages, all of these great committees. I want to try and have the information out because we're representing the country of Greens, and other countries of Greens can look at this information as well. And being in the information age, we could be a great beacon to show we can do this, and so can others do it. Whether we're winning or not, it's about the information and the message going and helping everyone else. So this is also a really exciting time because we're moving into 2024, and there's going to be a really exciting presidential race coming up every year. So this is the most exciting time to be alive. And but this primary is something that I think really needs to be disciplined with clear messaging. And one of my goals is also to try and make sure we're definitely projecting ourselves responsibly with healthy optics and not putting any type of toxicity into what would be the status quo of everything else in this upcoming presidential election. Next.
Awesome. Well, so that is it from everyone for goals. Holly and Bob had a chance to share what they do when they had their time earlier. So we are going to start diving into questions for our steering committee. I'm going to start, just leave these open. And so if one steering committee each wants to answer each question, and if it sounds like we're starting to hear the same voices, I'll call on some folks. Please try and keep your answers to about 2 minutes, just so we have time to get to lots of these questions. We've got quite a few in so far. So the first question we have is, how can the National Party better support state and local Green parties? Who would like to take that? Margaret, go for it.
Okay. Well, that's a really good question. I think there needs to be a lot of collaboration, or a lot more collaboration between the state and the National Party. And I think sometimes there's contention where it doesn't need to be. I think there are several things the National Party can do to help lower the process or the barrier to collaboration, because it isn't clear necessarily how someone could do that. Oh my God. So you're gonna have to pardon me. That's the Blue Angels outside my apartment, and that's really awful. So we were talking about fuel costs, all the rest. So I don't even want to get into how much money just went by my apartment. Anyway, so I think that it's really important to understand that it's difficult right now in a lot of ways for state parties to collaborate with the National Party because the communication systems are a bit antiquated and it's not really clear. My personal experience, and this is purely anecdotal, is that it's not so much that the state delegates and reps on the national committee don't know what's going on. It's that those reps and delegates do not communicate to their state parties what's happening. The delegates keep that information to themselves and aren't sharing it. Why that occurs is probably as varied as every single person who does it. But I think that we as a collective group can make a determination that we would like to change that sort of culture. We want our delegates to be responsive to the state parties and communicate the information in timely, clear manners. From the National Party perspective, you can't enforce that, right? So you just have to make the barrier low. You have to make the process easy, and you have to be very encouraging, right? The carrot versus the stick. So we want to encourage state parties to collaborate, to share, for instance, fundraising data. Every state party enters into a collaborative agreement with GPS National to share our databases for fundraising purposes. Yet some states choose not to do so and still want the help of the National Party. So we need to be in a position where both groups can be helping each other, and we can understand how to share our data and collaborate in a much more cohesive and convivial manner.
Stack.
We're gonna leave one, we're just gonna do one answer per question, but there are lots of questions and ones that touch similar issues. So I think we'll have time to go into this. So this next question that we have here is, how do you feel and think that the Green Party needs to deal with the duopoly reality of electoral politics in the US, when a third of our citizens seem to support a fascist, cultist GOP branch of this quote unquote single party control? And since we don't have any elected governors or senators or congresspersons, how does that impact how we should deal with our reality?
Stack,
Go ahead, Holly.
since no one else is asking. Anyone who knows me knows what I'm gonna say. Right at this very minute, we do have, and this country actually has something that is a little more unique than people realize. But the down ticket offices and local elections and local races are things that we have won, and that we can do, I think, a lot more, with a great deal more potential to getting into those races and actually making policy at the local and then hopefully state level. And we have more local of these local races and local offices than most other countries do. People talk about socialism, and oftentimes it's a more big government. A lot of times those places have a lot of more representation at the top level, like a rank choice and better proportional representation, but they don't have as much option at the local level. And that's where we can get a toe in the door. And we've done it. We've had well over 1,000, 1,300 some office holders, which doesn't sound like much until you compare with other third parties. But I still see tons and tons of, I think, missed opportunities for more of these races and more of these options. I will just mention in 2016, when the day after Trump was elected, what you saw across the country was mayors and counties forming compacts and climate compacts, saying we are not going to pull out of the Paris climate accords. And this was done almost spontaneously, but you see that at these levels, people can have an effect. Right now in my state, we had a good track record. The state legislature, being run now by solid red fascists, are trying to remove home rule and take the ability to do that away. So this is something we can fight on, and we can actually win on this. So I would encourage people to really start looking into your local government, local issues, and see where you can start. And that does trickle up the food chain.
Great, thanks, Holly. Our next question here is, will the Green Party adjust its candidate selection process to account for time constraints on the upcoming presidential race? If not, how will it make up for missed deadlines?
I can feel that.
Is there anyone who hasn't answered yet that wants to take this one? If not, Margaret, go ahead. Okay, Margaret, go for it.
So I think one of the challenges we face with having our presidential nominating convention so late in the summer is that, well, we get very few months, right, to get things on the ballot and get going. And it would clearly be advantageous for us to start earlier in the year. The real challenge here is that every state party will be having their primaries, their selection processes this spring. So we can't have our PNC until those are complete, because each state will be sending delegates to represent them to the convention. That's the real challenge here, and that's really the thing. State parties could absolutely move around their own, primary parts and all the rest. That's a thing they can do. And there's no reason they couldn't. In fact, there could be a group of states who all just choose to do it earlier than normal so we could get going. But unless that happens, my guess is that we're always going to be looking at midsummer at the earliest for a PNC. I think the very last, during last year, or the last presidential run, the very last state nominating convention took place in June. So we weren't really able to have our convention until the conclusion of that. So maybe states could move that up and do it, faster in POTUS years. That's perhaps something we could collectively discuss amongst national committee delegates. And I think that would be good. I agree that like there's a big challenge. We're already behind a lot of hurdles because of the money caps and everyone in front of us. So we need time to make the distance. And I think that would be a good idea.
Great, thank you. All right, so these next two questions I'm going to kind of combine together. They came from the same person. The question is, are we doing any work in mutual aid work in marginalized communities? Any help in Black and Brown communities to help with, for example, bailing out marginalized folks, solidarity support, a push to remove prison slavery, any kind of mutual aid work around marginalized issues? Craig, go ahead.
Yes, so a lot of Greens were involved. I'll speak to New Jersey. So we had in the middle of the pandemic, started mutual aid groups. Some are still going on now. One of the big ones was Mutual Morris, led by our key members from Morris County, and it used to be state party co-chairs. And we actually are still involved there in doing mutual aid there. We still have a network of allies in Montclair Mutual Aid. Black Lives Matters Patterson is still doing a lot of work there too. We still have friends there. We also have been constantly out protesting the detention centers in New Jersey. So we are involved. And I know in New Jersey, I know other states, I've seen a lot of stuff going on too through social media. So I definitely know the party is definitely involved there and takes that serious. And we're going to continue to be there. Like I said earlier, it's more about you can do different aspects if you want to focus on actions, drawing awareness there, obviously policy and also elections. So it's all different, these are all different arms that are going to come together. And we're definitely there for sure. Over.
Great, thank you. All right, our next question. When is the steering committee going to be setting goals and priorities for 2024 through 2026? We haven't had a strategic plan for nearly a decade. Will we have one soon as we go into an important presidential campaign year? I'm going to give it to you, Margaret, unless someone else wants it. But does anyone else want to take this question? Craig, go ahead, and then Margaret will hopefully not bounce between the two of you all the time.
I think we both have our own perspectives, of course.
You do.
I will say this. I'm all about left unity, and I want us to continue doing that work. My focus under my term is to continue to build this party. Yes, we have allies that are in other organizations, and I would love to see a Green Labor amalgamation down the road. But in the meantime, we've got to work on our house. We got to do our housekeeping first, get everything ready for next year. The last thing I want is for all these people to be interested in our party and then we onboard them and where they're going. We have to make sure that we're able to handle it. I want to make sure our state parties have the resources they're going to need as well. So that's pretty much the goals that I'm seeing forward. And the whole Left Unity campaign that started in 2020, we're going to keep going through next year also. Over.
All right, that was quick. Margaret, you want to chime in too?
I mean, I certainly can. Obviously our current strategic plan was written in 2013 and voted on by the delegates. There was a ton of research that was done demographically to talk to Greens in every single state to understand what we needed to do. And largely speaking, we haven't done it. 2 years ago, I wrote an action plan condensing all of that strategic plan down into 5 action points, which we could act upon. The past 2 years have been a bit of a stalled game in terms of advancing that. There's been other issues in the party which have come up and taken our time away from it. Nevertheless, there is that there, it's ready to go. And if you know a state delegate, if you are a state delegate and you're on our national committee, please participate in the discussions. It's very important to have more voices participate and not let just a few people dominate because they talk a lot. So, participate in that process, speak up on the action plan, talk about it, vote for it, bring it up. Like, this is important stuff. We can't move without the consensus of the group, which comes through the form of voting, and the group needs to participate in the process. And I really think that we all benefit when we do. It's a good plan. The people who did this were really, really thorough. It's got tremendous information. If you've not read it, go look at it. And I would challenge you, frankly, if you think some part of that plan isn't good, I would ask you what you think is better. And then B, but look at the parts that are good, and we still haven't done it. So I feel like it's one of those, we don't need a new plan. We need to do the plan we already made and we already voted on to do. We just didn't do it. So, it's a big challenge when you vote to do a thing, but then you just don't. We don't need to write a new proposal. We just need to do the thing we said we were going to do, in my opinion.
Great, thank you. All right, our next question. The excitement around Cornell West 2024 is attracting many young people. He's also attracting the interest of Democratic Socialists. Is there an attempt to connect with DSA to start organizing around West 2024?
Zach?
I'll jump in there. No. From the National Party at this point, the process is that the folks that are running for office are running for the candidate for the nomination, or running for the nomination, and the National Party doesn't have a pony in that race yet, until we have our vote, and then we can do whatever we need to do. So what individual Greens and what other folks may do around that is really open to them to do whatever they feel is appropriate for them to do and that they want to do, and engage with any of the candidates at this time. But we are not making any concerted effort to support any one candidate over another at this point, no matter how popular or celebrity or unknown they may be.
Thanks, Joe. I saw you put your hand up as well, and we have a little bit more time on this question.
Yeah, it's not appropriate for the National Green Party to be doing anything until the primary is finished. If other candidates would like to reach out, that's on their own accord. And we can't tell them what to do.
Great. All right, our next question here. What is the plan for a fully transparent Green Party primary elections? And is there any room for improvement? Elections in the US are far from transparent. Proprietary software, no ballot images posted online, no poll tapes, counting done in secret, voting machines vulnerable to hacking, et cetera, et cetera. It would be great for the GP to be a model of how we can do transparency in elections. What steps can the Green Party take to maximize transparency for the 2024 presidential primaries, and what needs to be fixed with the voting software? That is a lot of questions bulked together. So if we want to break that out at all, feel free as we answer this question.
It's easy to answer that. That's some of that is a PCSC question and not necessarily the steering committee. That's not our function to tell the PCSC how to do what it does and how to handle that. Our job, I think, is to make sure that we are being as consistent with our process and that everyone is getting treated fairly. Where there's a concern, someone needs to be able to go somewhere and say, hey, I feel like something didn't happen the way it's supposed to happen. And if we're involved in every step of the way, we're not that place to go to. So we need to be that place of neutrality. But I do think that there are things that can be done to improve transparency and to make our efforts a model, absolutely. And I think that the place to go for that would be to the PCSC and to work with that committee on how to unfold those efforts. That's kind of where I think about it. But my colleagues may have other steps that would be equally as valid.
Anyone else want to try? I see a hand. Craig, go ahead.
I'll keep it quick. So how are we gonna look at this way? Yeah, so some of this is by the PCSC. Each state is gonna be afforded delegates, and basically it's up to each state to format their process. So most states are gonna have nominating conventions. A few states will actually have a primary that you are going to have a ballot for and go for. So in New Jersey, for example, how we've held it before, to be as transparent, I've shared this before, but basically what we did, because we were in the middle of a pandemic in 2020, we put out a call to anybody, because in New Jersey, you can be a registered green, or you can pay dues and be recognized as a dues paying member. There's a lot of people that want to be affiliated with our state party that can't technically be party affiliated because of their job. They might be a state employee or something like that. So that's why we have a dues paying option in New Jersey. So a month before, we put a final call out to pay your dues, make sure you're registered green. We have everybody's email information. We verified it against the voter rolls. We were sending out the sample ballots through Election Buddy. It was a software. We decided to put the presidential candidates on a ballot. We even let a write-in option occur, because again, somebody might want to write it in, just like you're going in to vote on your general election ballot. They had an opportunity to write somebody in too. That was how we handled it during a pandemic. Obviously, it's gonna be a little different. We'll see how the process is gonna evolve, but we're gonna kind of jumpstart off of that and make it as transparent to our membership, our registered greens, our dues paying greens in advance. That's how New Jersey handles it. Every state's gonna have to come up with their own format. But yeah, they're all going to work on that soon ahead of obviously their nominating conventions. Over.
Great. All right, another question kind of on the same topic here. What are the rules or guidelines governing state or local endorsement of primary presidential candidates? Is this allowed but not recommended, or simply up to state parties to decide for themselves? Margaret, go
Can you
ahead.
repeat that?
Sure, yeah, I'll repeat it, and then Margaret, go ahead. The question is, what are the rules or guidelines governing state or local endorsement of primary presidential candidates? Is this allowed but not recommended, or simply up to state parties to decide for themselves?
Yeah, that last bit. It's up to state parties to decide for themselves based on their bylaws. From the national party perspective, we have a nominating process, and once that's complete, once a winner is chosen, the national party is 100% behind our candidate. All right, that's our deal. For individual state parties, they have whatever process they have. Washington State has a different process than New Jersey. We don't have the same registration. You can't be a registered green in my state. So that's not a thing we do here. We have to do it in a different way. So I think that makes it a bit of a cumbersome thing from a national perspective, that there's 50 states and 50 disparate systems, which all come together in this weird way to produce a result, which, isn't very clear for a lot of us. So I think that, I think that's all I'm going to say on that.
Great. All right. See if I've got another question in here. Okay, so the PNC for 2020 was awarded to Detroit, but then COVID squashed those plans. Would the steering committee consider Detroit as the location for the 2024 PNC? Tama, go ahead, and then if there's time, we'll go over to Margaret.
I've been chomping at the bit because there's some bits of misinformation going on in the chat. Detroit would have to submit an entirely new proposal, just like any other state or location would have to submit it. And there will be a request for proposals coming out probably in the next month, if not earlier than that. So that because we're going to try to do a proposal that has a hybrid, so that people can put that down as well. Because that's another expense for it. So and the PNC selection is done by the national committee every 4 years. The A&M selection is done by the A&M committee with confirmation from the steering committee, because it's a smaller meeting and there are different requirements for it, and we have different. We try to go around the country, so that's why we try to select based on the various facilities available. So, but the last 3 have been virtual, of course. So that request for proposals will be coming out soon, and I will we'll put it out there, and then we'll have a deadline, and then we'll have a forum where everybody can present their state or their location, and then the voting will start. So hopefully the process will be done by October maybe, and there'll be a site visit, et cetera. Does that, I hope that answers questions that were in the chat, because I know there was a little bit of misinformation going around there.
Great. All right. So we have a couple questions in here about how or if the Green Party networks with other leftist organizations, examples, Socialist Alternative, DSA, other socialist organizations. Is there any kind of partnership that the Green Party has with these organizations, or any coalition work that we're doing to build solidarity? Bob, you want to jump in? Joe, you want to jump in?
I'll jump in.
All right, go ahead.
I think it depends on the local and the state in working with different organizations, because some states have better, like for example, we've worked on ballot access with the Libertarians. Some states have worked on activists like marches and such with DSA. So I think it just depends on your locality. Over.
Craig, go ahead.
So yes, so I guess I'll say this. Yes, there's some people that are still tied to a couple different groups. In New Jersey, there's some of our youth that are actually also members of PSL. I do know friends that are, people that are friends with Kashama and Social Alternative. I know people working in Workers Strike Back. So obviously there's going to be a meld and cross membership, and or some people dues paying members in these orgs. All I know is that yes, there are people there, there's good people there, but keep in mind DSA is an apparatus of the Democratic Party. There are good members that are trying to fight that. There's caucuses and committees there that are trying to fight that. But overall, it is another apparatus and wing of the Democratic Party. So until they're able to usurp and rise up and take that entity over, it's not going to happen the way we would love for it to happen. We would love for them to spin off and break off and come over here. I know their concerns from talking to other allies. So that's why we need to do our part here. We need to continue to grow us, get us ready to go. So if we are going to have this wave of people coming over, that they feel that their values are going to be heard, their message is going to be heard, and how they're going to be able to be brought into the party in the right way. But I know that's some concern with some people I talk to that are still tied to DSA. And I don't know if that's anything else any of my other SC members have heard through their channels too. Over.
Thanks, Craig. And Margaret, I had seen your hand too. Do you want to chime in?
Well, I always want to chime in.
No.
No, I know. From the national party perspective, no, we don't have any formal working relationships with any other parties. We individually might know people here and there. On the state level, of course, collaboration is much more common. And we are all aware of many states where Greens and Libertarians, for instance, are joint, plaintiffs in a lawsuit to get voting rights restored for us and things of this nature. So we are open to collaboration when it arises in a strategic sense with, people who aren't even necessarily in agreement with most of our platform and goals, but just agree on that we should all get a vote. So I think that individually and collectively at the states and locals, there's a lot of collaboration. Nationally, there isn't. You saw during the last POTUS run, that was an effort that coalition campaign was built by the candidate, Howie Hawkins. That wasn't built by GPUS National reaching out to another group and agreeing to work together, right? So if the candidate wishes to do that, that's a great effort, of course. And like as an individual person, I think that's spectacular. And a coalition campaign seems great. But as the party, we do our own thing.
Joe, go ahead.
Lower my hand. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Craig. Yeah, I really wanted to, I guess, piggyback off of what I said last about, it's up to the candidate, how they go, because Howie Hawkins did try to unify with other organizations. here, actually, Howie Hawkins, after running for POTUS, he also ran for governor in 2022 in New York State, after our governor had removed our ballot access. So, and we have a situation where most third parties don't have ballot access. Right now, we have, and in 2020 and 2016, there were a lot of people who left DSA and tried to come into the Green Party. They were looking to, support anything other than duopoly candidates, and we took them in. And I'm a paying dues member to some of these organizations, DSA. I network with other organizations like Working Families, because I just want to know what they're talking about. I just want to hear what they're discussing and know how I can connect with them to bring them here, because I want to have my finger on the pulse. And that's like what Margaret said, Greg said, it's a state and local issue. There's a lot of nuances. So I reached out to, I keynote spoke at the Indiana State Congress, and they're having a ballot access situation, and just trying to, ask what's happening, and knowing that there are other organizations that are pro-labor, pro-union. They may not be a political organization that can put someone on the ballot, but that's where we step in. And we want to be able to connect with them and say, we have an avenue for someone, for, ideas, but also candidates. And it's definitely something that we support local and states working for. Over.
You're muted,
Kristen,
Kristen.
you're muted.
Look at that, first time. All right. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to our steering committee members for taking your time to answer some questions, to share your goals, how you got here, what you're doing. Want to give a plug for the rest of our time. So there's another set of sessions that are starting up in about 30 minutes. So if you haven't signed up for one of those yet, jump on in. And then for those of you guys going to Lee Camp tonight, have fun. It's going to be a blast. I am jealous I didn't get my ticket in time. So if you are like me though, and you didn't get your ticket in time, that doesn't mean that we can't give money. We can still fundraise even without going to Lee
Thank
Camp.
you.
So go ahead and I'll give our little fundraising plug anyways. But it was really great to see everybody. I hope you guys have a great time, and we'll see you at later sessions. Bye.
You'll get your ticket in a few minutes. As soon as
Goodbye,
I can roll it
everyone.
out.
Thank you, Greens, for being here. See you all soon. Cheers.
Everyone, take care.
Thanks for hosting, Kristen.
Kristen, can you stay on just a second?
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
I don't know who's controlling the recording, but if we can stop that, let's go ahead.
Yeah.
It seems to only be letting me end it, but not. just
That's fine.
leave it.
End should be fine.
I don't want to end if you guys want to talk.
It's fine, Tom. If we need to jump on something else, I'll shoot you an email with another
Okay.
Zoom.
I just wanted to know if you wanted to go to. Lee
Oh, it's
Camp.
fine. No, it's fine.
No, if you want to, I haven't sent the
It's
message
okay.
out yet.
No, it's okay.
Okay,
All right.
because we cut it off at noon so that we'd have time to prepare.
I'll text you. I don't know if we're going to be home in time, but if we
No,
are.
but somebody's telling me, why can't I buy a Lee Camp ticket? Because
Oh,
I
no.
had to cut it off.
Yeah, I know. We got to get them out.
I mean, yeah, because we have to allow for time for people to have tech stuff.
Yep.
And last year it was a mess because I had to refund a bunch of money.
Oh, no.
So anyway, that was all I was going to ask you, is if you wanted to go.
Oh, no, it's fine. I've seen him lots of times. So I'll let people enjoy who
We
haven't.
talked to him. He was
He's
really
great, isn't he?
He was fun on the practice too,
Yeah.
that we had for the tech practice. So it'll be fun.
No, he's awesome. So y'all will have a blast. All right. I'll see folks later.
Take care.
Night.
Bye.